Singait La, Galasis, good day, good people. Hawa for joining us tonight for the United Coast webinar to discuss travel restrictions in the Central North Coast in Haida Gwaii. So Hawa for spending your time with us this evening to hear from leaders, Indigenous leaders and municipal leaders from the Central Coast, North Coast, and Haida Gwaii to talk about the travel restrictions we'd like to continue to enforce in our communities and how we're working together to protect our communities, our nations, and each other from the spread of the COVID-19 pandemic into our territory. Before we get into the webinar, I'd like to open up tonight with a prayer and hawa to the elders from the Skiddy Haida Immersion Program. I'd like to open us tonight with a gratitude prayer. If we could all center ourselves and come together for a moment here. Satlana Guna Kulis Ahayat Anga Shulkilaga Pulwad Luchan Skaudigi Asing Skungul Hai Galang Kul Kasku Plagi Tulgat Wagen Gudang Tla Chika Gudang Stanua Itgi Ista Gut At Talang Wagits Laga Itla Kangait La Hawa Salana Unang Kulis. Creator, I thank you for today, as well as I thank you for everyone. The work that we do, you help us, and then give us strength and peace. It is good we depend on each other. Look after us. Thank you, Creator. So again, how everybody for joining. Again, the Council of Haida Nation, United webinar, and all of our guests for making time here, the leaders from the communities, Indigenous and municipal, again on the Central Coast, North Coast, and Haida Gwaii. And we're all coming together to share with you what's been happening in each of our communities and regions and the work that we're all doing together, united, Central North Coast and Haida Gwaii. And this is obviously a unprecedented situation that we're all dealing with. And the message that everybody's sharing locally and provincially, nationally, and globally is we're all in this together. And I want to bring you all together here to hear about what's going on and the work that we're doing and how important it is that we all continue to work together at a political level, but also on a community level and a nation level. And, you know, we just want to, at this time, I just want to acknowledge everybody out there who is volunteering, who is putting in the extra time to support those within your community and to support one another. I know these are very, it is very challenging times for each of us and our families and our nations and our communities and as leaders. It's also a challenging time, and we want to reassure to help each other and to look after the citizens of each of our communities. I want to also just take a moment to acknowledge those who are grieving and mourning and dealing with loss at this time. I know it's very challenging, and just continue to offer condolences to those who are grieving right now. And you know, it is very challenging not being able to gather as we normally would, and to be able to, you know, share the hugs and the food and the things that we normally do to support one another. But encourage everyone to continue to support those who are having a difficult time in any way that you can. So for the evening tonight, we have a relatively simple agenda. We'll do a round table with the leaders tonight, where each leader will share a little bit about what's happening in their community in regards to our COVID-19 response, specific travel restriction measures put in place, as well as talk about how we're working together as communities and nations, Indigenous and municipal, and how we'd like to continue to work with the other levels of government, provincial and federal governments as well. I think as many of you have seen, and probably how you heard about this or why you're tuning in, you've been following what's going on through our different community websites and social media. And you've seen, you know, back on April 6th, together, the leadership from North Central Coast and Haida Gwaii submitted a letter to the government, provincial and federal, looking to collaborate on enforceable travel restrictions and to empower the RCMP and our local municipalities to be able to restrict travelers into their communities and into our areas, and to work with the Indigenous communities and nations who are implementing our own travel restrictions under our own jurisdictions and authorities, and really calling out and offering an opportunity for the different levels of government to collaborate with us, because we're all committed to doing whatever we need to do under our own powers to protect our people. And we're offering an olive branch to collaborate and really work closely. More recently, we are issued a letter looking for a meeting together with the Premier, so we can really have him, the Premier of British Columbia, understand where we're coming from. I know we all have our unique challenges as remote communities for healthcare and for resources, and we all share a common history here in British Columbia and in Canada with previous epidemics and pandemics and diseases like smallpox and influenza and others from the past, and all share that history together, not only the Indigenous nations and the trauma that we've experienced and the resiliency we've shown since then, as we continue to grow and build our nations and our self-governance. We fear a step back in that if COVID-19 would come into our nations and communities and cause loss of our knowledge keepers and language speakers and any of our community members, and we fear that. So together, that's, you know, a lot of what is on our minds and what we're all working so hard together for. So I think for opening comments, I'll leave it at that, and we'll get into our roundtable discussion this evening. So we've agreed to start with the Central Coast. We'll start in the south, and so on the panel tonight, we do have from the Central Coast area the chair of the Central Coast Regional District, Sam Schooner, also an elected representative for the Newhawk Nation, and the chief councillor of the Newhawk Nation, Wally Weber. For the North Coast, Linda Innes, the chief councillor of the Gitxaala Nation, has joined us tonight. And for Haida Gwaii, we have Barry Pages, mayor of the village of Massud and the chair of the North Coast Regional District, and the mayor of the village of Queen Charlotte, Kris Olsen Dulju, is also with us tonight. So we'll get the roundtable started. So I'd like to pass the mic over to Sam Schooner, the chair of the Central Coast Regional District.
Hey, good evening. Thanks for, like this is pretty major. This is really big. Like it's, to see our districts and our First Nations working together. It's like side by side there with the most common of goals. And, this is really, really exciting to see. Like I've dreamt of something like this, with just First Nations, with just First Nations of the Central Coast. But I never expected something like this, and this is amazing. Like this is unity at its best. Like we're fighting for a cause, we're fighting for our people, and I'm really proud of the things that have transpired so far, and it's good to actually see the faces that are just hearing the voices was just not enough, right? And it's awesome, and thank you guys for doing this, and thanks. It's a lot of work. There's a lot of behind the scenes people that have did a lot of work. Like for one, I know is Dan Bertrand. He's been really, really good for us, and for the Central Coast CCRD level. But he's done some amazing work, and with the help of course of other people, and and just very appreciative of what you guys have been able to accomplish. And and just some of the concerns that are going around right now is that personally, I think I've my family's been fishermen for years and years and years. Our people have been fishermen. The Haida have been fishermen. The Heiltsuk have been fishermen, and generally First Nations have been fishermen. And I just want to say that an area outside of Bella Coola here is Area 6. It has been open, and has been one of the only places that have been open for the last 5 years. Like it's a continuous cycle, and it's really decimating the stocks, all different kind of stocks that we have. We have sockeye that have basically disappeared off the map. Our coho are they're not very good. Like we mainly rely on the farm, the hatchery, and our chum seems to be getting to that point. And I know that's not the real part of this, but like opening up the the Central Coast to the sporties, and to for non-essential, what I call non-essential, it's a non-essential as far as I'm concerned. I think that's an area that we should look at a little bit more. But I'm just want to add that just very grateful to be on this call with you guys, and I'll talk to you after. Thank you.
Sam, before I pass it over to Chief Councillor Wally Weber from the Hawk Nation, I'd also, sorry I missed, like to acknowledge Mayor Garry Reece from Kw'alaams is also joined us on the webinar tonight to speak for Kw'alaams, and so he'll also be sharing in the roundtable discussion after Chief Innes. So I'll pass over to Chief Weber.
Thank you, Chief. And I'd like to say thank you to all who are frontline workers. And you're doing an excellent job. There's a lot that has to be done, and to be a frontline worker and having to protect yourself to protect your families, and that's just, you're awesome. Thank you. And I also like to send my prayers out to Alert Bay and North Island, and condolences to all who are grieving. So it's we're in difficult times right now, and so it's we have to do things differently, and we are working hard here in our nation. We work with the Heiltsuk, and I'd like to thank Marilyn and her crew for phoning us when there's people on the ferry coming across, and we do the same thing, vice versa, and trying to stop the traffic, which gets kind of hard once in a while. but anyways, with the what the Nuhawk have done is we basically follow our hereditary chiefs, and we stand behind them and the decisions they make, and we fund them to do the road closures. Sorry. To do the road closures and the ferry closures. There we have 3 people 24/7 at the foot of the hill, and it's costing us a few dollars, but it's working. We've gone down to an average of maybe 4 to 5 cars a day now from 17, and down at the ferry terminal, it's the traffic's getting less and less, so which is working really good. And we put the road closure for the Nuhawk, we put it on every radio station we could on VC, and everybody's heard it. So we have it in CFR, GOAT is Williams Lake, and Kamloops and 100 Mile. We've got it all on those radio stations, and it's working. And I think the flooding might be helping us too. So a lot of flooding out there, and but we are working hard on stuff. We work with the EOC team here. It's they help us get the messaging out to the radios and that, and the chiefs just come up with ideas and how to do this and how to do that, and then we pass it on to the EOC, and they start putting it on the radio. And we have our own local radio here, and we get on it every once in a while to keep reiterating that, we need to stop our travel. Oh man, we need to stop our partying. We need to start looking after our elders and people that are most vulnerable to this disease. And it's quite amazing that in the evening we see people. We don't see people out in the roads anymore. Just very rarely there. People are starting to listen, and I think the stuff that happens in North Island and Lord Bay is wakening people up, because we now have it, and there's a cases in Williams Lake and Lexus Creek, Anaheim. So it's close to us, But we've some of the things we've been doing is we've written letters to DFO, and we've got no answers. They've gone deadly quiet. I don't know what the problem is there. So I've talked to Caleb Backrack, and I think that's his last name, and Jennifer Rice, and they're working on trying to get the DFO to answer us if it's going to be closed, because the first opening is supposed to be June the 1st, and the North Island, like Port Hardy, and that they've got their first cases now on the reserves there, and they're Camel River, and they're all those. That group is coming up here to come fishing, and oh my God. So, and we've also had one of the things we did, and a couple of times now, we met with the non-commercial, with the non-Nuhawk commercial Area 8 fishermen, and they are working with us, and they actually thanked us for the road closures and that, and said they were doing a good job, and they're also said they'll go to the foot of the hill and to the ferry to help monitor it. So that was an awesome move. Thank you very much to them. And we have a checkpoint at the hill and at the ferry, and we're asking people to turn around if they're not essential. And we have a lot of signage above the hill now. We just put more up there today. I think we've gone as far as, I don't know if you guys would understand me, but it's Beef Trail. It's probably about, oh God, how many miles is Beef Trail, Sam? About 40? Oh no, about 120? Yeah. About there anyway, so. And we are, I'll just read my notes here. We are asking for, we wrote letters to close our commercial fishery in Area 8, and they figure there's about 150 boats coming, and there's no way they can isolate themselves. the boats would be tied up so close together. It's ridiculous. And the washrooms there are, they only have 2 washrooms, 2 toilets, and 2 showers. And we talked to the orphans down there, and he said that when he phoned, they told him that he had to clean the showers and washrooms every time somebody used it. And that's pretty close to, I think he said $16,000 by the time the whole thing's over with. And the ice plant, it'll go broke because they can't isolate there. It's 2 tight quarters in there. And so these are the things we are doing, and you know, we're slowly getting there, and it's been a lot of hard work and a lot of long days. But it's okay. We're here for the people, like Sam says. You know, we're here to protect our people, our elders, and you know what? It's our constitutional right to protect our land and our people and our language and our culture. How you protect your language is through our elders, and we have a lot of elders that speak, but we only have 3 fluent speaking elders left, and we got to do all we can to protect them, and we will. And we, you know, it's you know, I did all I said. I also mentioned the chiefs are all at the hill. We got 22 chiefs, and every day there's 1 or 2 up at the hill, and helping the workers there. We have 3 workers up there, and they go up there and help them out. And it seems to be a lot better when you have more people there, because people are not as aggressive as they were at the beginning. They're doing pretty good. So, anyways, that's basically what I got to say, and I hope that everybody is well, and we all get through this without having too much problems. And I thank the guys that are putting this together, and you guys are doing an awesome job. And we need to work together and stay together. And I think that's the only way the governments are going to listen to us. And don't be scared to do what you have to do. And thank you.
Wally, Chief Weber from the New Hawk Nation, and Sam Schooner. We'll move on to the Heiltsuk Nation. We have the Chief Councillor, Marilyn Slett.
Hi. First of all, I just want to also acknowledge and thank the Haida Nation for coordinating this, and also to everybody that's joined in, and all of the community leaders that are on the phone here or on Zoom here today, and all of those that have been participating on our calls, because we've been really working together through this pandemic. In terms of the Heiltsuk Nation, we issued a lockdown, a complete lockdown in our community that went into effect on April 26th, and that's in effect until May 11th and may be extended as needed. But backing up a little bit, we also issued a travel ban on March 26th, where we banned all non-essential travel to our community, including visitors and tourists. And how we implemented that in our community is similar to, the New Hawk. We have checkpoints in our communities at all of the entrances, down at the marinas, and as well as BC Ferries. We have an emergency response center that we implemented on March 20th. And we have members of our EOC, members of our elected council and hereditary leaders, as well as our bylaw officers that will go and meet the ferry when it arrives weekly here in Bella Bella. We also have a community patrol that watches and monitors the entry points with the 2 marinas that we have in the community, and guardian watchmen that also provide assistance and also monitor the waterways, surrounding the community. So it's definitely working together with our surrounding communities and neighboring communities has been working out really well, and it's been, we have the same concerns as our community, neighboring communities. We have a local hospital here in the community that has limited resources. We have 220 elders that live in our community, and 30 of those elders are fluent speakers, and they're all over the age of 75 years plus. So that's been one of the main drivers for our community, to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to prevent the spread of COVID into our community. We also have other members of our community that have more fragile immune systems, and we're really wanting to make sure that we protect everybody in the community. And I want to share one of the things that one of our members had shared recently on Facebook, and she was talking about all of the physical distancing and the social distancing and the self-isolation that our community has been embarking on. And she said, we do all of this so when we gather again as a community, nobody is left behind. And for us, that has been one of the drivers in some of the tools that we've been using. We implemented a disease emergency bylaw that provides for developing a secondary site should the hospital be overloaded with an outbreak in the community. It provides for the lockdowns that we've implemented in our community, and the travel bans, provides guidance and the framework for that. And that's been supported by our hereditary leaders and our joint leadership. The other things that we've been doing have definitely been in support of working as a regional body from Central Coast, North Coast, up to Haida Gwaii, and knowing that as we can strengthen our voices and make sure that BC and Canada, that we don't repeat what's happened in our communities with past pandemics. All of our communities have that history of losing a lot of people. And one of our chiefs at one of our meetings had said that what we have different today is we can have information at our fingertips, in terms of protecting our community and what the threats are. Unlike what happened, with the influenza and smallpox and Spanish flu. So, we've really been making sure that we're using, all of that information as well, that we can, get our, put our focus to. And that raises some of the, where BC can definitely, do more, working with our communities around, informing communities when there is a case in one of our communities or in one of our regions, to make sure that we can mobilize our communities and make sure that our response is, organized, and that we're, supporting, our community. So for us, we've been definitely, really pushing that envelope to make sure, that, BC, I guess it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. I mean, there's been a lot of focus on the urban centers, and our communities are, on this fringe of, we have all these different threats with sports fishermen and recreational and tourists, and just people trying to flee the urban areas. So certainly working together and, really trying to push that envelope with BC to get on board with us in Canada, to make sure that what restrictions that we can do together can be done, and that none of us and none of our communities have a tragic ending.
Oh, Chief Slett. We'll move on to the North Coast leaders with us tonight. I'd now like to again pass the invisible mic over to Chief Councillor Linda Innes from the Gitxaala Nation.
Thank you. Thank you to the Haida Nation for organizing this live town hall meeting. My name is Linda Innes. I am the elected chief for Gitxaala. I want to acknowledge the hosts, the participants here. Thank you for joining us on this very important session. I want to acknowledge that we know that this has been a challenging time for our nation members. It's been a challenging time for First Nations government, for municipalities, for provincial and federal governments. And we are all facing common issues, common challenges, and we're all equally face the same threat when it comes to dealing with the coronavirus. We've already heard the speakers talk about the history of pandemics. Gitxaala is no stranger to that experience. We've lost many of our leaders in the past, in the early 1918 to the 1920 Spanish flu, and we're very well aware of those impacts. Our governing council took swift action when we knew that the World Health Organization declared a pandemic. On March 26th, I believe, we initiated very strict travel bans. So nobody was allowed to come in, no one was allowed to leave. We activated our emergency management team, our emergency social services. So we rely heavily on the Prince Rupert for our staple items, our groceries. While we're blessed to have all our seafood resources, so we did definitely made sure that we were harvesting our herring, raw and kelp, salmon, our whatever sea resources we have, our traditional medicines. We made sure that we were out gathering that. But we also made sure, what we've done is to really restrict travel. We've been very fortunate to our Gitxaala members that are living in the urban areas, even though we encourage social distancing. It's all about community, no matter where we live. We still have those connections with our members in the urban population who have been very generous and supporting our members living on reserve, sending over groceries, and our emergency social services was activated quickly. So they've also they've done a great job of ensuring that our members, especially our elders and those with young children, were taken care of, that their staple items were provided for. And we've been fortunate to work with industries such as the Prince Rupert Port Authority, who has been supportive in helping us with freight runs. So at a community level, we've been doing a lot, and I think that I want to be able to acknowledge this community strength and the discipline that's been shown here. A lot of discipline. We followed all the provincial orders. Everything was shut down, social distancing. And just recently, because we're such an isolated community, started loosening the restrictions here a bit. So going back to our reliance on municipalities for our basic supplies and our essential health services, we're very concerned about the hunting and fishing that's been added to the list of COVID essential services. I think it should be made clear that people should not be traveling beyond their local area to engage in these activities. Our nation relies on the ocean, just as being coastal. We rely on the ocean. We noticed that on the Easter long weekend, there was a lot of traffic, and we are sending letters to the federal and provincial government expressing our concern that this is not acceptable, that more clear messaging needs to be coming out of all agencies. You know, we worked hard on a communicable disease plan here. We've worked hard to make sure that our membership are protected. But if these are not in alignment with provincial and federal activities, we're kind of missing the boat here, because we're not protected. We have an excellent Coast Guard auxiliary and community that has been very great when it came historically to responding to marine emergencies. So we don't know who's out there, where they've come from. So we are also calling on the federal and provincial government to really work harder to provide clear messaging and clear direction in terms of what is really essential travel, essential services. We've been informed that, you know, we're well aware that the North Coast is limited in healthcare resources, and we want to make sure that we are doing our part to prevent the impact of COVID. We know how devastating it is. We want to make sure that we are equally protected, that our elders are protected, our babies are protected. And so, again, I think that there's a lot of lessons to be learned here. We're looking, we follow, as Marilyn Slett indicated, we have a lot of information at our fingertips. We're well aware, we're well informed. We're well aware that they're predicting a second wave, maybe third wave. And we know this is a great time for all of us to really take a look at what lessons can we learn from this. Are we in alignment with provincial and federal orders? And if not, I think that the federal and provincial government needs to really come to sit down and meet with us and hear our concerns. You know, we seen those orders lifted for the municipal authority losing their powers to enact a state of emergency. And that really increased the threat to our own people when we rely on the Northern Health Authority for medical services. So we'd really like to encourage the provincial and federal government to work with First Nations communities, to work closer with municipal government. We are on the ground here. We know what our needs are, and that's the area that we really need to give serious consideration for, especially if they're looking at a second wave. We work closely in our community with our hereditary chiefs and our community. We keep them informed of what is happening. They're well informed through the news and the media, and we want to urge the levels of government to reconsider their list of essential services. And again, I want to say thank you to all the coastal communities for bringing us together, for demonstrating the unity that is needed. That, you know, one message, many voices. We know the challenges are real. It takes a toll on the mental health of our nation members. And we want to make sure that COVID never impacts even though we don't have cases, we're still impacted. It's a challenge. Our goal is to stay safe, and I guess just to continue supporting each other, to continue to protect our nation, our members, our communities. And again, we call on the government to provide consistent messaging that on what is essential travel, what is essential services, and you know, like to really restrict travel to local communities only. So with that, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for allowing me to speak here, and I wish you well, and I hope that we can come out of this together in good health. Thank you.
Hello, Chief Linda Innes from Gitxaala Nation. We'll now move on to Mayor Garry Reece from Kw'alaams.
Good evening. I don't know if you can see me or not, but I had a little bit of time trying to get on this here, but anyway, I made it. And anyway, you know, we've been on a lockdown for a while, as you heard the speakers ahead of me there, and you know, we don't allow anyone in and out except for essential services, and you know, a lot of our people are not too happy right now, and you know, there's a lot of complaints. We have people coming in, and you know, they don't follow the guidelines we put in place. They're supposed to isolate themselves, and we have been having problems with that. And I know that we don't have a confirmed case in Prince Rupert yet, and which is good. And the news release that we put out there, I got an email from their district manager up in Terrace of Transportation, Dan Baker, and wanted me to inform him if we're gonna be going up and doing a blockade on our reserve up in the highway. And the RCMP is already aware of in our news release there, so I had a call from them also. And so I'm sure the Premier got word of that already, and you know, I think we'll make a decision if we're going to get a meeting with the Premier, which I'm hoping we do, and voice those concerns with them to not allow visitors into Prince Rupert. You know, we have a lot of band members that live right in Rupert there. I think we got over 1,000 band members that live right in Rupert there, and a lot of elders there, and you know, we need to protect them also there. So, and if we're going to do this blockade and stop our people, that's going to take us coming and leaving our community here. And so I'm going to be talking to some of my councillors tomorrow to discuss that. If that's the action we're going to have to take, if we're going to go on blockade, we're going to have to leave our community here and to do that. And you know, and I'm pretty sure my council's in full support of that yet, and it's pretty scary. And you know, I feel for Luke Bay with what's going on there, you know, and I wish them the very best there. And also like to thank the Haida Nation for organizing this here, and all the coastal communities joining in here and working together as one. That's what we need to do, and to open some ears back in Victoria there. I think that's what we need to do. Thank you.
Hello, Mayor Reece, and thanks for joining us tonight. So we've heard from the Central Coast representatives with us tonight and the North Coast. So we'll move on to Haida Gwaii, over to Barry Pages, Chair of the North Coast Regional District and Mayor of the Village of Massud.
Hello, Gaagwiss. And I also want to thank Council of the Haida Nation for organizing this webinar. I'm really happy to see all of our coastal communities meeting regular to try to come up with solutions around this pandemic. And I've been really impressed with how everybody's working together. And you know, all of our communities are very similar. We're rural, remote, isolated communities. We've got very limited resources. So I think we all get what each one of our communities are going through. And, you know, we really, our thoughts and prayers go to Alert Bay, because that's what we don't want to see happen in our communities is COVID-19 coming here and then us having to deal with it. We want to be proactive and try to really make sure it doesn't get here. So I really want to thank all the communities for all your work that's been done. You know, we've written the government a few letters now, and it's as coordinated communities, collective communities. And, you know, it's kind of sad that we haven't got a response on either of them yet. You know, I recognize that the province is kind of looking at things on a macro level, but, you know, from our communities, we're rural, isolated, small communities with limited resources. And what happens on the coast up here is different than what's happening in the urban areas. So I think it's essential that we stick together and continue to lobby on behalf of our communities and our residents and the most vulnerable in our communities. So how for everybody for doing that. As far as Massud and some of the things we've been doing, you know, we've been working, our EOC has been working going outreach to the community and reaching out to different groups to see what, you know, what things are needed from their perspective. We've been working with a couple different groups trying to get funding for our food bank and a meal program that's being set up. And, you know, kudos to Gwaii Trust. We're lucky we got Gwaii Trust there to support us on these kind of initiatives. You know, it's great to see that happening. As far as the North Coast EOC, you know, we've been regularly meeting with the Unified Command, which has been coordinated from the Council of the Haida Nation. And, you know, we want to thank Council of the Haida Nation for that leadership there. You know, both the North Coast and Village of Massud's EOCs were implemented. The government revoked them shortly after. And so, you know, we've been working with the Unified Command on travel measures to make sure that non-essential people are coming here. You know, we do have essential service people coming here. And I want to make a comment with respect to that too. You know, our hospitals have, through Northern Health, has been bringing in essential workers to our communities. I'm hearing a few comments that, you know, a few of them are getting harassed because, you know, in a small community, everybody knows who lives in the community. And so when a new person's here, so I think the community really needs to recognize that, yeah, there might be some new faces in the community, but they're here for a reason. They're here to work on protecting our most vulnerable in the community. And we really need to respect that. And, you know, it's hard. It's hard because there is a lot of other non-essential people that are getting through and coming here also. And I guess from a unified basis on the coast, that's what we're trying to articulate out there to government is these non-essential people shouldn't be coming here, and senior levels of government got to support us with getting that message out there that they shouldn't be coming here. So the North Coast EOC has, you know, been working on trying to get a bylaw information officer to potentially meet all outgoing ferries out of Prince Rupert coming to Haida Gwaii, and providing information that if you're not here as an essential service, you shouldn't be coming right now. We will gladly welcome you in the future when, you know, there is more safety measures in place around the whole pandemic. But right now is not the time to be coming and visiting Haida Gwaii and any of our coastal communities because we don't have the resources, and we want to be the safest we can for our most vulnerable. So yeah, you know, I just want to let the communities know that we gotta remember that these people are coming here to work for our most vulnerable, and we need to respect them and be hospitable to them because they're here doing a service for us. So yeah, how Gaagwiss for coordinating this.
Hello, Mayor Pages, and again, thank you for all of your work as well. Just before I pass it over to Mayor Olsen from the village of Queen Charlotte, I'd just like to again acknowledge all of you tuned in on Zoom and in Facebook with us tonight for the United Coast webinar with our leaders from the Central Coast, North Coast, and Haida Gwaii, both Indigenous leaders and municipal leaders. So we're just finishing up the Haida Gwaii part of our agenda in the round table, but for those of you who are tuned in, we do have a section on the agenda for questions and answers. So if you can ask questions on the Facebook live feed, and our communications staff will help get those questions to me. You could ask questions to a specific leader or region, or broad questions to all of the panel. So at this time, I'd like to pass it over to Mayor Olsen, Village of Queen Charlotte.
Gaagwiss, I just want to say thank you to the CHN and your communications team and everything you guys are doing, right to the Unified Central Command here on Haida Gwaii. Just our community really appreciates your guys' efforts. I'd like to thank also all those frontline workers and volunteers right now who are putting in time and effort to make sure that all of our needs are met within our communities. I'd also like to thank all of you leaders for showing up tonight, and all of the people watching Facebook live stream right now. This is pretty important and pretty historic, as all of us are coming together united to, prevent the spread of COVID-19 into our communities. Our EOC has been working really hard with in unison with the Council of Haida Nation, with all other EOCs on the island. We have our food bank kind of operating out of our youth center within our community, and our EOC's been running multiple scenarios and just trying to figure out, if COVID-19 comes to our community, how we're going to respond and what we're going to do. They've been working tirelessly, and it's really got to throw a shout out to all of those members of any EOC from any community. I know you guys have been working tirelessly right now. We have been also doing wellness checks on some of our most vulnerable and our seniors. We've been doing a public outreach, just giving messages and stuff, letting people know to stay home, stay safe. And, our kids, they're really doing a heroic job right now, staying home. They're not going to school, but they're practicing social distancing, and this is really a challenge. And I just want to also thank all of our teachers and support staff who've made the move to online learning to ensure that our kids are still educated. And it's just been an awesome show of force from everybody. We've been really working hard to keep our community in a positive state of mind. And it's just been really exciting to watch over the last period how we've been coming together to work. And, initially it was we came and we made these statements of local emergency together. And just want to thank some of the work done from the mainland. The Mayor, Prince Rupert Lee Brain, before the province rescinded our orders, he quickly put a letter out trying to kind of gather all of us together so that we could be in force and have the province recognize that the unique regions of British Columbia should be kind of managed differently. And I look at that letter and I see the mayor of Alert Bay, him being with us. And I just have to say, my heart goes out to his community right now. I really feel for, he put effort forward, tried to prevent the spread of this into his community. And that statement of local emergency was lifted. And as we all know, it's going to come from somewhere else. It's not in our communities right now, and his community is fighting hard. And it's one of the concerns I have as we start to recognize that the virus is going to occur in hot spots. We see that Alert Bay, we see that in the Mission prison, we see that in the meat processing facilities. So as this virus starts to spread throughout, the province and the world, I just really hope the province is listening and the federal government is listening to us as we try and come together united to say, hey, some of the essential service measures you guys are determining, like hunting and fishing, really aren't essential for outside residents to come into our region. We have heard Bonnie Henry, the provincial health officer, request people to stay home and not move into these areas, and we thank her. we thank her for those efforts and stuff. But, you know, as we move forward, we have to recognize that, you know, in our regions, we have to take special, unique measures and precautions to protect our knowledge holders, our elders, the language speakers in all of communities. You know, we're facing something a little different because of our remote geography, our isolation. You know, that's what makes our communities special, but it's also what makes our communities vulnerable. And I just really appreciate all of us coming together in the strength and unity. I hope this carries on in the future. I hope this just doesn't end now, but we all continue to work together. It's just been an amazing feeling to get on the phone calls and to hear all of us work together and try and formulate a united plan. Because up until now, sometimes it feels like we're not being listened to, or we're not being recognized for our unique geography. And I know there's other places in the province, in other nations across Canada, that are feeling similar sentiments, that, you know, their area has to require some sort of special measure that is unique to the overall federal or provincial measure, something that we as local leaders recognize. Like, we recognize the unique features and in what supports we have within our communities, and we also recognize our weaknesses. And just all of us coming together tonight really warms my heart. Is, you know, we look to protect our communities. So how all for coming and listening tonight. I'm honored. I'm truly honored.
Told you, Mayor Olsen from the Village of Queen Charlotte. So I'll do an overview from the Council of the Haida Nation perspective as well. I think I covered, you know, generally a lot of my thoughts in the opening remarks, but just before I get in, I guess specifically to the Council of the Haida Nation, you know, this, as others have mentioned, this is unprecedented times, and I've been quite as well proud and taken back by the level of collaboration and working together. And when we're getting ready for this call, I'm down in the basement right now, so I didn't have such a slick background as others are. So I had to find a picture, and the picture behind me, just to be clear, I'm not gathered in a crowd. I am home physical distancing, staying home here, but the photo behind me is a photo from the George Brown Recreation Center here in Skiddy during the joint review panel hearings for the Enbridge Northern Gateway pipeline. You know, that was you know, the last big challenge that we all faced as the nations on the north and central coast in Haida Gwaii, and we all stood together strongly then and worked together on, you know, legal fronts and political and community fronts, and gained great experience and knowledge of how powerful we are when we unite and work together. So it's a fitting backdrop for this webinar tonight. On Haida Gwaii, just for the Council of the Haida Nation, I just want to be very clear and also acknowledge all of the community emergency operations centers. So when you hear people say EOCs, they're talking about the Emergency Operations Center. In each community on Haida Gwaii, quite early on in this pandemic, had got their EOC up and running. And so each community, you know, each village, municipality, and Skiddy and Old Massud, you know, they really are the ones who are doing a lot of the hard work in preparing the medical resources and the community protocols and communication for each community to really look after the citizens of each community under their jurisdictions. And so for the Council of the Haida Nation, you know, our role early on primarily has been around communications. So I'd like to acknowledge our communications team for all of their hard work. Our website, the Haida Nation .ca, our Council of Haida Nation website, is a central source for all the information of each community EOC, all the releases and everything that our citizens and people of Haida Gwaii need to know, along with other updates from provincial and federal governments and international organizations, the First Nations Health Authority. So there really is a central source of information there for everybody to go to. So I please encourage everyone to use that as a resource for all of our media posts and updates on the letters, and all that information is there. And that was really initially our primary role, along with bringing people together. And, you know, this is an example of that tonight, bringing together the leaders from the Central Coast, North Coast, and Haida Gwaii, but also helping to set up the unified command. So now weekly, all the leads from each of the communities on Haida Gwaii are part of a unified command call, where each representative is sharing what's going on in each community and what successes and challenges we're facing, and together trying to come up with collective solutions to what we're facing here. And so, you know, that's been a lot of our initial role. I think also just want to acknowledge, again, Chief Councillors Duffy Edgars and Billy Ivanovich for their leadership in our collaboration and everything we've been doing, along with the other islands leaders and the leads of our EOCs and everybody who's been part of keeping our people safe. So the other big part we're here to talk about is the travel restrictions. And so for Haida Gwaii, we were, you know, fortunate quite early to have the airlines themselves make early decisions to stop the flights to Haida Gwaii, which essentially initially had left us just with the BC Ferries terminal and visitors coming from Prince Rupert to Skiddy terminal is a main area of focus. And again, I acknowledge the Skiddy EOC and Kyle Marshall, the fire chief here in Skiddy, for initially getting a checkpoint set up, information checkpoint for those coming into Skiddy, and that evolved into our ferry checkpoint. So we've been working very close together for each ferry to have checkpoints on both sides. And those are, you know, those are information checkpoints, but they're really a place to not only engage with those visitors to Haida Gwaii, essential service workers. Of course, we are, you know, looking to keep essential services going, but there's a, you know, a chance to see who's coming in for essential service work, as well as all of our own people from our own communities across Haida Gwaii who are returning home, and sharing with them that, you know, the measures that we put in place with our state of emergency. So our state of emergency, as other leaders have mentioned, initially come into place on March 23rd. And for Haida Gwaii, right from the very beginning, we were asking everybody who's coming from the mainland to isolate for 14 days, you know, regardless of where you traveled, whether it was international or you just went over to Prince Rupert. Everybody who is coming home to Haida Gwaii is expected to isolate for 14 days and to put in a self-isolation plan where you have an ability to live in a place where you're not putting others at risk, and put in a plan where people can shop for you and get the things that you need to shelter in place for those 14 days. We also early on, March 12th, put out a letter to our citizens and people of Haida Gwaii, encouraging people not to leave Haida Gwaii if you didn't have to, and really to stay home right back from March 12th. And, you know, that was a challenging time for everybody. That was right at the spring break time. And so, you know, we were on it early, and really all of those who did go and come back that went through the checkpoints and were informed of the need to self-isolate. And I'm really proud of the response from our communities and the people of Haida Gwaii, and everybody holding each other accountable. So for the state of emergency, yeah, originally we had issued that together with the municipalities of Haida Gwaii, the North Coast Regional District, the city of Prince Rupert, along with the restrictions that the other communities had already put on place in the mainland. And we were working at this together, and when the province rescinded the state of emergency powers to the municipalities, that left the Council of the Haida Nation jurisdiction holding up the state of emergency with the Council of the Haida Nation and Old Massud Village Council and Skiddy Band Council. But the leaders of Haida Gwaii immediately stood behind us in their communities, EOCs, and we've continued to work together very closely right from the beginning. And just want to acknowledge everybody. For us, the state of emergency is rooted in our Haida Nation Constitution. Part of our two parts of our mandate that are quite crucial to us at this time are one, to perpetuate our heritage, our culture, and our language. And we've seen the COVID-19 pandemic immediately as a threat to our Haida language speakers, our knowledge holders, and our elders. And so, that's our immediate objective, is to protect them. Secondly is to come to the common defense of the Haida Nation, and in this case is that invisible enemy of the virus. And the other part to the Constitution is to strive for peaceful coexistence with our neighbors and other governments, and that's the approach we've taken right from the beginning and are continuing to take in our letters and our communications through the media and to the government in offering them an opportunity to work with our jurisdiction and to use all of the powers that we can all bring to the table, whether it's a Haida Nation or Indigenous governments, municipal governments, provincial and federal, and together, with all of our different jurisdictions and authorities, we could put it together a system that can restrict travel in a way that allows for essential services to continue, while at the same time protecting our communities and our most vulnerable. And so that's what we've been continually putting out there. But of course, we're all prepared to do what we need to do to look after our communities, our citizens, and each other. For the CHN, more recently, we've we recognize that the focus on the ferries is really taking up a lot of energy, and the different approaches to that, whether that's working directly with BC Ferries or our checkpoints, along with working with our neighbors. As Mayor Reece mentioned, we've had those discussions around using our jurisdictions to protect our communities and potentially escalating those if we need to. And I really appreciate and want to acknowledge the leaders on the mainland for standing with us, because as president of the Haida Nation, I also have citizens in Prince Rupert that I represent, and I want them to be safe as well. And so this isn't just about, our reserves or just about Haida Gwaii. This is about everybody in the North and Central Coast. And we're committed to work together and to help protect our citizens on the mainland as well, and our family and neighbors on the mainland. So for our internal Haida Nation approach, we continue to focus on entry points. So we've reached out to some of the sport fishing lodges to find out what their plans are. We worked collaboratively with the federal government for the closure of Gwaii Haida Heritage Site. So we were in consultation and communication and did that together. And we'll continue to work with the other communities on the other entry points, the airports, the docks, seaplane bases, to make sure that all the information is there for those who are coming and going, and the expectation to self-isolate, but to also put in a system where we can now better also track essential service work that is happening, and share that information so everybody has a good idea of who is coming and going into our communities. The other areas of focus for us are we are looking to see how we can use our staff and our resources to support our citizens to be able to for community and business support, which is still taking shape, but I think it can focus on making sure those people who are eligible can apply to federal and provincial funding programs and support. We know everybody is concerned and struggling financially if you've been unable to work. So we want to support our citizens and make sure they're able to access those programs that are available to them. Second, or third, I guess, is food security. You know, tied to that is recognition that yeah, money is tight for some, and we want to find ways that we can help work with Skiddy and Old Massud and the other communities on Haida Gwaii to help facilitate better food security for individuals and for communities. We're grateful to the Heiltsuk Nation and the trade that's been going on in cow, or the herring roe and kelp. I know that was such a bright spot for our community members to receive a feed and be uplifted by that. You know, the sacred food that brings us so much health and well-being. And during these tough times, it just, you know, I think I carried people through a couple weeks there to have a fresh feed a cow and get through being isolated. So that's another focus for us. I think, you know, recognition of us being on an island, that we've become quite dependent on the grocery stores for many, and the ferries to deliver those goods. And so been quite pleased and inspired by how many individuals have been getting their green thumbs going in their gardens, and we want to look to see how we can support that and support other harvesting and traditional food gathering activities. So we're looking to use some of our Gwaii Trust funding to support our people with that. And I think the other thing that we're all dealing with here is we still have to run our government and our business continuity and do. So we're trying our best to still be able to you know, maintain the basic levels of operations for our government, and as well as you know, our stewardship responsibilities to care for our territories. But we're all adjusting to this new reality of working from home and finding other ways to keep the business going and be safe. And I think, you know, one thing we're looking into is how can we use platforms like this for community engagement and you know, town halls and public meetings, which, you know, might be the future for us. So that's a lot of been our internal work. And you know, I think it just has really been a real eye-opening experience at the power of working together, and really proud of how, you know, at a time of emergency and crisis, that we didn't all go into our own little silos and corners and just protect ourselves or worry about ourselves. And in fact, we've all reached out to work together and learn from one another and share with one another. On Haida Gwaii, our island's protocol table has been up and running right from the beginning of this pandemic, the pandemic declaration. And it's been quite a positive outcome for our governance on Haida Gwaii, us meeting regularly and getting back in the rhythm of the All Islands Protocol table. The Coastal First Nations table ties many of us together as well. And, you know, that group has also been working together. And I'd also like to acknowledge the City of Prince Rupert and Mayor Brain as well for his efforts and send our support to him and his community. You know, and although we haven't got the traction to work as closely together as we'd like with the provincial and federal government on hard travel restrictions. You know, the efforts of our local MLA, Jennifer Rice, you know, she has been available to us in clear, constant communication, as well as our Member of Parliament, Taylor Bacharach. He's been very supportive and open lines of communication with him as well. So I'd like to acknowledge them. And just, yeah, I guess overall, that's been the big few things that I've learned and look towards the future is how do we carry this momentum for Haida Gwaii and I'm sure other communities are the same to continue to improve our food security, to be able to look after ourselves in times of emergency, to also develop the policies and the resources and the planning for pandemics or for these kind of emergency situations. I know it's unprecedented, but for us, you know, like others, we didn't have a big detailed plan in place and we're figuring it out as we go. Even for a state of emergency, you know, that's been a big learning experience. And I think in terms of, you know, travel restrictions and essential service workers, you know, we've been able to build up our ability to figure out what it's going to take to put in place the kind of, I think the kind of systems we would like to see going forward to know who's coming and going from our territories and communities and to be good hosts and guests in that in the future. But what, you know, to track people, to get their information and have a stronger border management system. And I think I've also see as an opportunity is the ability to see the level of essential service work we are dependent upon from off Haida Gwaii. And there's a great opportunity for us to put in the training and the education to, I guess, cut down some of that leakage from our communities, those contracts and those positions, and train our own people to fill those positions. So I think those are some of the observations and things that I've seen. But really, I think, you know, the biggest thing is what we're all gathered here tonight on the United Coast webinar is the power of working together. And I think this is a good example of, you know, I guess, you know, reconciliation amongst each other of how our different levels of government can work together, but also for the Crown. I know for the Haida Nation, that's what we've been putting forward is there's ways where we can figure out how all of our jurisdictions can work together and how we can align and find ways to manage things better and do better work by being able to understand where each other are coming from and collaborate. And so far, you know, I know it's an emergency situation and they are responding on a bigger level, but, you know, so far we haven't seen that level of collaboration. But our offer still stands there. We know it's best for all of us that we all work together. So Hawa. So that concludes our roundtable section of the agenda. We did have a section for question and answers, but so far I don't think we have any questions. So we must have did a really good job covering everything. Everybody has great faith in us, I guess. I think that's been one of the other things to observe is the level of commitment and buy-in from our people in our communities and everybody from all the different walks of life. You know, normally in these situations, and I actually seen a funny meme about it, but said, you know, this is serious because all the indigenous people are all taking the government orders seriously, and we're actually listening. And, you know, I think that's where a lot of our frustration comes from with the lack of having hard enforceable travel restrictions is we've all taken this very seriously for our communities and protect our elders and our knowledge keepers and language speakers. And we're all staying home. We're all sacrificing income for a lot of people from visiting family. You know, we're such tight-knit communities and gathering and feasting and food gathering, coming together is what we do best. And we're all making that sacrifice, and to see people wanting to come to our communities and territories and move around freely is disrespectful and disappointing. While we're in these situations where we've lost chiefs and elders and members of our community, and we couldn't even gather to grieve and mourn. And for people to come and for leisure activities at these times and put that stress on us and our resources and put us at risk is really just disrespectful to us, and how because we've been taking this so seriously and doing everything we can, and that's all we're asking from others, is to follow those same instructions that we're all following, and be good people and help work together and help look after us and look after yourselves and members of your community. So I think we'll have continue our work together as leaders of the nations to continue to put in the systems and the restrictions that we need in place, and we're all committed to working collaboratively. So I think at this point, if there's no questions and answers, maybe I will allow or pass it around one more time if there's any closing words from each of the leadership just before we wrap up here today. So we'll go back to the Central Coast to Sam Schooner. Any closing words you want to share?
Yeah, I just, like to reiterate, this is kind of unprecedented times, and really, really fortunate to have gotten to know a lot of you on a personal level, and I think there has been a lot of mention of the next steps, right? Like, how can we keep this momentum going? I think that's something that we should really look at. I think unifying areas of BC that are not normally unified is something that's really unique. Like the Heiltsuks, the Haidas, the Newcocks, everybody on the up and down the coast, as well as all the regions. It is something to see. It is really something to see, and I think we need to build on it. After this is done, after we have survived this, after our people have survived, I think we need to build on this. And I just like to thank the Haida, for allowing us to be on your call, and y'all have a good evening. Thank you.
How about Sam? Chief Wally Weber in the Newhawk Nation.
Had a bit of a problem trying to unmute here. So I also like to thank the Haida and all the workers that have put this together. It's an awesome job, and there's a lot of people on here, and I thank you all for being on here. And it's like Sam has said, it's it has always been my dream to try to unite all the nations up and down the coast and get them to work together. And you can break a branch, but you put them all together. You put a whole bunch of branches together, you can't break it. And that's where we need to go. And I also once again like to thank all the frontline workers, everybody that works for our health and the safety of our people. Thank you so much, because we need all the help we can get, and hopefully we can get the two governments to come together to speak to us, because I'm really worried about it. They're so quiet. They're not returning our letters, both the feds and the province, and we're just going, wow, you know, what does it take to wake these guys up? So anyways, I would, you know, try to get a hold of your MLAs and MPs and get them to start helping us work on trying to get some kind of answer. It's hard for us, and it's probably hard for them because you know, talking with Taylor and he's having his problems with finding out what the heck's happening with the DFO. So but there's one last thing I'd like to say that is also use your hospitals. Like the hospital here, the doctors wrote a letter to DFO asking them to close Area 8, and because we only have one ventilator for an adult and one for a child, and they say there's the air ambulance is going to come and help us if we get overloaded with cases. They can't. You look at all the nations up and down the coast, they can't help us. You know, it's already been proven here. We had medevac, a person out in an ambulance, a vehicle, and not the air ambulance. So it's kind of sad, and it's hard on our people, and they're wondering what's going on, and we have no control over that, the air ambulances and stuff. So, and you know, even our hospitals are all in lockdowns, and it's even hard to get into the pharmacy. So it's let alone go visit your family members there, because they're probably getting really lonely in there because it's in the hospital, because we can't even go to see them. People are getting pretty smart though. They're going to windows and tapping on the windows and waving, and that's an awesome thing to do. And you know, I got a brother in the hospital that lives in there permanently, and we put a care package for him every once in a while. But it's hard to wade through a window and not get to talk to him. Yeah. So with that, I'd just like to thank everybody that's on, and you know, be safe. Take the advice of the doctors and what they're saying, and don't travel. You know, please don't travel. Like, we still have a bit of that problem yet, and it's kind of hard on our people when they see people coming in on the ferry or down the road, and they're terrified that it's going to be here sooner or later. And you know, I phoned my buddy in Alert Bay, and well, it's my best friend there, and he told me, he said, you know, I feel really bad for all the nations, because it's our own people that's probably going to bring it into us because of the travel and not listening to the travel restrictions or anything. So yeah, and so we need to really start paying attention. And if you have a radio you can get to, or flyers, like we keep putting it on there, and like on our radio station we put it on. It's been played over and over what to do. So it's a awesome thing to have, is that radio communications, but not all nations have it. So, and thank you, and be safe.
Wally. Marilyn?
Thank you. I know our community shares a lot of, the same concerns as our neighboring communities and up to North Coast and Haida Gwaii. We, we definitely think that, by working together and continuing to work together, we can, have an effect on those restrictions that we want to see, happen in our communities. I know we're taking those proactive, measures along with all of the other coastal communities, but making sure BC and Canada, come and talk to us as a collective body around stopping non-essential travel is one of the things that's, foremost in our mind too. And it's been said already here tonight around, there's going to be the loosening up of those restrictions that BC has already, talked about last week. And, we also know that there's going to be a second wave, and without any vaccine and treatment, it continues to be a threat to humankind and continues to be a threat to our communities. So, we'll continue to protect our community the way we have been, and, and work together with our neighboring communities, and also want to acknowledge and thank the Haida Nation for coordinating this here tonight, and making sure that our voices are heard, and people know that we're working together, and we'll do what we have to do to make sure that our communities remain safe. I think one of the things just to acknowledge, we have a hospital and a health center and all of our frontline agencies that have been working really hard, our EOC, to make sure that COVID doesn't, reach the borders of Heiltsuk territory. Just want to acknowledge all of the people that are working on the front lines here and everywhere. We know that, it's a lot of work, and, there's a lot being carried on everybody's shoulders, and that it's hard to stay home, and it's hard to, have this physical distancing in our lives right now. But we know that, if we pull together, we'll be able to weather this storm together as well. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in, and thank the leadership on the phone or on Zoom here tonight, and thank you for allowing us to be able to be a part of this conversation. Gitxaala.
Oh, Marilyn. Chief Councillor Linda Innes.
I want to say thank you as well to the leadership for allowing me to participate in this important event today. I want to extend my thanks to our Gitxaala membership for their the strength they've shown, the discipline, the respect they've shown to each other, and especially to their families by practicing social distancing and practicing self-isolation when requested. I'm extremely proud of our nation on the discipline they've shown and the care they've shown and I want to acknowledge that here. I also want to go back to what we're seeing and the challenge that we're faced with in terms of the province allowing hunting and fishing to be an essential service. I feel here for us, we've cut off all essential services, non-essential travel. If we need to hunt and fish, we do that in our own local territory. And I would expect that that all others within Canada would do the same. If you need to hunt and fish, you need to do that in your own local territory. And we're asking the province and the federal government to support us. We all know we have extremely limited resources, and we're all in this together. We hear that message consistently from our federal and provincial counterparts, and they say we're all in this together. So let's align our policies, our regulations, and have clear and consistent messaging for the next time we're faced with this challenge. I know the threat is not over yet, and we still need to continue to work together. We all face the same issues and challenges, and we want to get through this together. We are no different than anyone in this world. We're not immune to this virus, to the coronavirus. And at the end of the day, we want to walk out of this in good health, and we want to be able to gather around the kitchen table with every seat filled at the end of the day. So I want to say thank you to each and every one of you for participating, for the support and the encouragement and the direction that we are taking together. Thank you.
Linda. Now I'd like to pass it over to Mayor Reece from Kw'alaams.
Hi. I'd just like to thank everyone for participating tonight, and I just wanted to mention too, when the news release went out there, I had an interview from CBC and asked them about the blockade there, and I sent them a copy of the map where we have our reserve there, letting them know this is what we were talking about. So if they're aware of that, I just wanted to let you know. So again, thank you very much, and thank you for coordinating. Thank you.
How about Mayor Reece? We'll go to Barry Pages.
Yeah, I guess for a final message, I would, really want to acknowledge our community, our residents. I think they've done a really good job of taking this pandemic really serious. And, an example is we've got our local grocery store, the Haida Gwaii Co-op. They're only letting 10 people in at a time. And, the community in general has been very supportive of it and recognize, that they're doing it for safety measures and that. I want to recognize all the school kids for having to deal with this. My daughter has been really having a hard time not being able to play with her friends and that. And, it's something that kids have never had to deal with. I'm seeing a lot of big families in town that aren't holding birthday parties and gathering. They're taking it very serious. There's been a few drive-bys for the birthday child and honking and vehicles going by and that. But all in all, the community, I've been very impressed on how the communities have been handling this whole situation that we really haven't had to deal with in our lifetimes. And so it's sad to see that we still have recreational visitors coming to our communities when we are staying home ourselves and not recreating and not going to school and not doing the normal things that people do. So if I could put a message out there, it would be for all of you recreational visitors right now, please don't come. We don't have the services to deal with the pandemic if it gets here. And please respect us with these measures that are in place right now. And again, thank you, Gaagwiss, for coordinating this. Hawa.
Hello, Mayor Pages. And we'll pass it over to Mayor Olsen.
How about Gaagwiss? I just really like to thank all the elders and the knowledge holders for handing down and passing down their knowledge from the Kinesi, the ancestors, so that we can all come together and do this under the principle of respect, Yakudang, because we all have responsibilities, and it's just understanding just what our responsibility is and our community members' responsibility to make sure that this doesn't occur, that the spread of COVID in our community is stopped. Because we all recognize that everything does depend on everything else. And we think of like the Ginawadluhan Gut At Kwagida, if I pronounce that properly, everything does depend on everything else, because, some of those shared teachings that we have, it's like the world is as sharp as the edge of a knife. These stewardship laws that, have been shared with our community from the Haida has been very beneficial for all of us, because right now as we come together as the North Central Coast and Haida Gwaii to protect our communities and share a common message and theme to the provincial and federal government that, You know, hunting and fishing is a non-essential service during this critical time, because we want to make sure that all of our communities protect the valuable resource that we have, so that we're able to deal with situation on the ground in our own unique way, but also to deal with it together, all of us working together, all the different multiple jurisdictions coming together under that principle of respect. And I just really want to Hawa for those teachings being passed down so we can do this peacefully.
Right on. Hawa told you, Mayor Olsen. All right, I guess in closing for me, also like to acknowledge all the leaders on this webinar and all the other leaders who've been part of our discussions. You know, the whole all island protocol table, City of Prince Rupert, met all the members of the North Coast Regional District, the other nations from the Central Coast and North Coast. So we don't have everybody on the call today. This is who's available, but everybody's been standing together and working together. Chief Harold Layton from Metlakatla. Yeah, many leaders coming together. So I'd like to acknowledge everybody, hold my hands up to all of you and all the work that you're doing. I also, just on behalf of the Haida Nation, including Chief Councillors Duffy Edgars and Billy Ivanovich, just again, a hawa to all of our citizens and community members on Haida Gwaii for doing the right thing and taking this seriously. And it's one of those unique situations where everybody's on the same page. Everybody's in agreement, and you know that it's very serious when that happens. I haven't had any complaints or comments from anybody that, you know, what we are doing is too much, or we're asking too much, or, you know, there's no cases here, maybe we shouldn't be doing this or that. Everybody across the board has been 100% supportive of our state of emergency, of the measures we're taking. And in fact, you know, many members are asking for even stronger measures at times. And so I just want to acknowledge that. I think that's really important. I also want to say hawa to, again, all of the EOC workers, all of the healthcare workers, and all of our essential service workers, especially those of you in the working in our grocery stores and gas stations, and those who are on the front line, exposed to the most risk. And just can't thank you enough for helping keep us all going, and so we can all stay home and we can all be safe. I think the other thing is I'd like to say thank you in Hawa and acknowledge those visitors or those people who did have trips booked to Haida Gwaii and to the North and Central Coast, and who heard our message and canceled those trips. I think you should be acknowledged, and I'd like to take this time to say Hawa for doing that, for all of the local businesses, for also, you know, making those decisions to cancel trips for visitors, for informing visitors of the state of emergency, to BC Ferries for their work in spreading our message as well. You know, there have been many positive gains here, and we have seen a significant decrease in the travel to our region, to Haida Gwaii, and I think to the other regions, as we've heard. And so we do want to acknowledge that we are being heard, and it's thanks to the great efforts of many who helped spread our message, those in the media who've been supportive. But it does only take, you know, one or two people to bring it into our territories, and so our efforts need to continue and will continue. But I just want to acknowledge that. But as we, as the provincial or federal government or other governments talk about reducing some of the restrictions, for us, I think we're still in this for the long haul. Others have mentioned, you know, there's multiple waves, and, you know, what the future looks like will be different from what the reality was we previously once knew. So we'll all have to be prepared for that. I think I'd also like to just spread that message to all of our own citizens and the people of Haida Gwaii to, again, please continue to stay home, and please do not travel off Haida Gwaii unless it's absolutely essential, which I think comes down to, you know, medical emergencies or family emergencies. But if you can, just, you know, please limit your travel and stay home as well, because I'm sure people from other communities also want to limit the visitors to their area right now as well. And we have to do our part and be respectful and reciprocate what we're asking is for others to not travel at this time unless it's an emergency or an essential. And we need to do the same. I'd like to also acknowledge and hold up all of the young people. You know, a lot of our people in our communities, you know, when this all first started, you know, they missed out on, at this point, the junior all native. I know that was a big sacrifice and a very difficult thing to go through. And you know, I know those feelings myself personally, what it means to be part of those events and to miss out for this year. Just want to acknowledge you for that. And take this as an opportunity, I think, to come out better in the long run. You find some other passion or something to put your energy into. Like others have mentioned, just grateful for everybody finding creative ways to still acknowledge each other and celebrate without and still physically distancing, and just encourage, just plea to people to please, you know, not start to ease up, to not share drinks, to not, you know, share cigarettes or joints or vaporizers, and not to party and not to start coming together. I know you know, that may happen outside of here, or you may feel like, you know, it's not here, everything's okay, but we need to stay diligent and we need to continue to be respectful and hold each other accountable in a good way, and to be kind to one another and kind even to those who you don't know, to people that you see who you think are breaking the measures. You know, please continue to be kind and find good ways to share the message and to hold each other accountable. So I think in closing, you know, a couple things that I think are important to recognize and take away from this is working together. I think it's a great opportunity, again, to reconnect with your family and your clan systems and your support systems between communities as well. That we do have these networks and these systems in our smaller, tight-knit communities that we can support each other and look after each other. I guess in closing, you know, when we're having the state of emergency discussion and the types of potential measures that may need to be in place, you know, I was checking in with some of our hereditary leaders, and you know, one of the things we have to look at, or we're looking at, was restricting, you know, all travel to Haida Gwaii, or all people, whether they were residents or not. And you know, that would be against our constitution of the Haida Nation, where any citizen has the right to freely move in and out of the territory. And talking to one of our hereditary chiefs, you know, they, again, were very respectful and trustful that we'll do the right thing. But what they said is, whatever we do, we have to do it together with the other leaders of Haida Gwaii, and to work together with other leaders on the coast as well. And if we stay together, we'll be strong, and we all know the right thing and what we need to do. So in closing, again, hawa to everybody for joining us on the United Coast webinar, to the leaders who joined here, what's going on in each of our communities and regions. And to everybody, this is our opportunity for transformation. And I think all of our cultures and communities have that theme, that lesson that we've experienced many times before. Our ancestors shared those stories of of transformation. And this is our opportunity for a great transformation. So let's seize it, and we could all do that together. Hawa everybody for joining tonight. So that will wrap up our United Coast webinar here with leaders from the North Central Coast and Haida Gwaii. So I'd like to now say a closing prayer. Another gratitude prayer from the Singla Sioux book from the Skiddy Haida Immersion Program. And that's, one of the great opportunities of transformation in front of us, is to connect with our spiritual sides and our language and our culture and our stories. And this is another gratitude prayer. So please quiet yourself and come together. Ahayat Dunga Sulkilaga. Gundlai Wad Luchan Skaudigi Dunga Sulkiltlaga. It Tla Ulnagai Skaudigi Dunga Sulkiltlaga. It Tlaga Tagai Skaudigi Dunga Sulkilaga. It Yagalang At Gut At Ki Gawai Skaudigi Dunga Sulkilaga. Gina Gaagwiss La Skun It Gi Tulgit Tulwad Luchan Tla Kyangait La. I thank you for today. I thank you for all waters. I thank you for our homeland. I thank you for our traditional foods. I thank you for our families and our clans. Let only good spirits guide us. Look after everyone. Hawa. And good night, everybody. Take care.